Hello everyone, my name is Navi Rahmansyah and I'm going to present about current issues in English language learning. First of all is the journal's title. The journal's title here is Application of Flipped Classroom in Grammar Teaching. The journal has researched by Zhuo Li, Hai Ming Wang, Dong Qi Wang, and Xiao Juanjia. They are from Hebei Normal University of Science and Technology, Qinhuangdao, Hebei, China. This journal is included in Advance in Social Science, Education and Humanities Research, Volume 90, and published by Atlantis Press in 2017. There are 5 parts of this journal. First is introduction, the second is the development and characteristic, third is the implementation, fourth the exploration, and the last is conclusion. First, introduction. Grammar learning used to an ineffective since it taught by traditional mode. Why it can be happened? Because the traditional mode is just a repetition. It looks like grammar, it's just repeat and repeat and repeat and so on. There is no such creative things in the grammar learning when it used traditional mode. Then flipped classroom comes from a combination constructivist and behaviorist theory to make class more interesting with various learning process. It provides the students with all kinds of activities to master the knowledge in class, which may help arouse students' learning interest and at the same time achieve learning outcomes. The quality of English teaching will directly affect the overall development of the whole elementary and secondary education and will also affect the development of talent. The second point is the development and characteristic. The development of flipped classroom. Since 19th century, flipped classroom thought appeared. The flipped model is an interactive teaching method with a student-centered approach that flips the traditional classroom by moving information transfer out and moving information assimilation into the classroom. In 2004, Salam Khan made videos about learning materials and uploaded them to website, which was popular among students. Later, he founded Khan Research Institution and stimulated rapid development of the flipped classroom. In 2007, John Bergman and Aaron Sams, two chemistry teachers at American High School, uploaded PowerPoint they had made to website and required students to learn after class, also finish homework in classroom, and they gained an unexpected teaching effect. From then on, the flipped classroom mode has been popularized at all, especially American college and university generally. In 2011, New York Times and Global Times published articles about flipped classroom and called it a great reform of classroom teaching models in the world. Still in the second point, the development and characteristic, there are comparative analysis on traditional classroom and flipped classroom. The first point here is a teacher. In traditional classroom, teacher as knowledge imparter and classroom master. But in flipped classroom, teacher is student's learning guide and facilitator. The next is the students. In the traditional classroom, there are the passive recipients of knowledge. But in flipped classroom, the students is active learning and researchers. Then the third point is student literacy. In traditional classroom, there must be high self-learning ability. Since in flipped classroom, they have low self-learning ability. The next is about the time allocation. Teachers explain most of the time in traditional classroom, but in flipped classroom, the teacher and the students are discussed in learning most of the time. Next is teaching equipment. In traditional classroom, there are chalk, blackboard, recorder, and PPT. But in flipped classroom, there are a micro video and teaching plan. Next is the teaching form. Traditional classroom has a class explanation and class homework. But in flipped classroom, they just has learning before class and inquiry in class. The next is teaching content. Teaching content here in traditional classroom, knowledge explanation and instruction. But in flipped classroom, teaching content is about problem inquiry learning. The teaching method in traditional classroom is very different because they just present new knowledge. But in flipped classroom, the student has autonomy, cooperation, and explore learning. The last one is teaching evaluation. Teaching evaluation in traditional classroom is paper test. Then in flipped classroom, there are multi-angle and multi-mode evaluation by the teacher. Next, the third point is the implementation. Establish a strong belief in flipped classroom is important. I just decide behavior. As is the education concept, so is the education behavior. The implementation of the flipped classroom is bound to breaking the balance between teacher and educational environment. The school should provide technical support for making grammar class efficiency. In addition, teachers should spend much time and energy developing the revolution of flipped classroom. Still in the third point, implementation, students are the center of teaching. As the emerging teaching mode, students convert to the main part of teaching. Obviously, the transformation mainly requires students to further improve student autonomous learning ability. There are three links to achieve the material transformation, namely pre-class, in-class, and after-class. In pre-class, students become the clues and collectors of information, which requires students to collect the relevant information according to the learning tasks required by this class. Students can watch teaching video for mastering knowledge. In the classroom participation, students become the main participants of teaching contents to interact with teachers and classmates effectively. Instead of being passive knowledge retrievers, students become the center of class are entitled to decide learning time, place, and content. They can share the information and views which they have collected before the class. According to the class, they have a deep understanding of the contents need to be mastered in the process of discussion. Students shall make feedback of the grammar learning in after class, find out problems and take initiative to improve them. The joint proposition of the three links can not only help students to develop the ability of autonomous learning effectively, but also can cultivate the tacit understanding between students and teachers to enhance the efficiency of teaching. Development in active learning approaches combined with innovation in instructional technology have led to increased use of the flipped classroom model. The last point in the implementation is provide a technique platform. Teachers and students are required to improve their internet application ability with emphasis and skillfully use all kinds of multimedia teaching to learn the course content, of course. Teachers and students should have the awareness to improve the related skills to lay a solid foundation for effective development of flipped classroom. Thus, education application technology should become a booster of the teaching in flipped classroom. The fourth point, the exploration. After the joint effort of several generations of education scholars and students, the flipped classroom has achieved good stage progress in English teaching classroom. And the first steps is pre-class learning. In here, the teaching video for students is about 5 to 10 minutes. Teachers are required to make sufficient preparation and collect relevant background knowledge before class, it including music, story, and picture. For example, the lesson is about attributive clauses. Teacher can cite a music which lyric is use the attributive clauses. After students watching the teaching video, students should complete the assigned homework, and it is helpful for students to find difficult points, and this difficult point is the most important knowledge which should be solved in the class. The next step is why class discussion. One of the characteristics of the flipped classroom is that assimilation is accomplished through classroom interaction. Teacher as the guide should find out where the important point timely before the class. Study found that the interaction between students is more conducive to the absorption and internalization of knowledge. Therefore, students play main parts in the classroom and achieve the maximization of knowledge. Then students try to find the answer with discussion and teachers' help also. The last step is after class feedback. In the actual teaching process, this procedure will be ignored by many teachers in flipped classroom. Actually, after class feedback is conductive to help students learn about the problems exist in flipped classroom teaching in a timely manner, and accurately grasp the students' problems in the process of participating. This part seems to be redundant, but it plays a decisive role in the practical learning process. Therefore, teachers are required to communicate with students after class to understand the teaching trend in time. Fourth point has the comparative analysis of on testing result. This is the example from the journal, and there are experimental class and comparative class, and it compared by the author in here. So you can see in the slide there are a data that shows us about the differences between experimental class and comparative class. Then the conclusion of all of this journal is in this paper the researcher made a research of grammar teaching. Then the writer found some good effects of grammar teaching in flipped classroom. It improved classroom efficiency, of course, based on the students' activity and teachers' capability. In short, flipped classroom is a kind of teaching model that takes students as the center, which emphasizes students' personal autonomous study. However, in order to maximize its advantages in teaching, we still need to have further exploration of flipped classroom in other areas. And that's all of about flipped classroom in teaching grammar. Hope you will enjoy it. Thank you and bye bye.